the Other Barrio was an incredible team effort. It was basically, we put people in that we tried to do everyone from the Bay Area or San Francisco, and we did a really good job. But I wanted to shout out to my film partner, Dante Betteo. Dante found the story in a book, San Francisco Noir, where Alejandro's story, The Other Barrio, was in there. He adapted that story for the film. He was the producer and the director and the editor. So really fantastic. It was wonderful working with him, and just a fantastic effort doing all those things. Our lead actor, Richard Montoya of Culture Clash, lived in San Francisco for a long time. Not only did he act, but the film was actually has two parts in a sense, because the first part is Alejandro's story, and then we have a second part of the film. And the second part was scripted by Richard, and he did a great job with that. And then he recruited many of the actors in the film with his contacts, mainly in the theater world. My great friend, the godfather, Rene Yanez, he was, rest in power, Rene. He was the production designer and so much more. In a lot of ways, he was the heart of the film. He was a location scout. He did casting when we needed 60 extras. He would get them there, and it was really incredible. And we owe the look of the film, we really owe to Rene. And a lot of the props in the film, he even produced those himself. So we really owe a lot to Rene. And I want to thank our two leading ladies, Veronica Valencia. I hope Veronica comes on with us tonight, or to view us anyway, and Pearl Wong, for their dedication and sensitivity. And they provided a lot of beauty and heart for the film. And all the other people that helped, who, there's many, many more, but those were the ones I wanted to especially welcome and shine a light on them. I don't know if Nicole and Alejandro, you have anybody special you wanna mention?
There were so many great people on the film, like you said. One person that has really impressed me since the filming is Melina Bobadilla. She was in the bar scene, and she, from the time she came in from her audition, I was like, she's gonna be something. Like, she was such an incredible actress and so nice on set, and just so good to work with. But she was in Orange is the New Black in the last season, and she was in Gentified, I think in the second season, when she plays the dad's immigration attorney. So I was so excited to see her on both of those things. So that's been like really amazing to watch.
Great, thank you. Alejandro, anybody come to your mind?
I think one of the interesting aspects of the movie is where you're filming in the Galeria de la Raza, and you have a community meeting going on about the gentrification. And I thought that was very appropriate and a nice touch, because they were real people from the mission, from the barrio, doing their thing in a way without having to act in that sense, right? But just being themselves. So I thought that was a very nice touch, and added a sense of realism, authenticity to the movie that really made it seem contemporary and capturing the moment of what's going on in the mission, not just then when the film was made 5-6 years ago, but still resonates now. So I thought that was a very nice contribution by just community people being involved.
Yeah, that's great. And that's also, Alejandro helped get people to these scenes along with Rene. And I guess, Annalisa, you were in that the Galleria scene, right?
Yeah.
I guess Alejandro told you better be there or something.
Yeah, I'll tell the story in a little bit, because I do remember it. But Eric, let's play that trailer right now, and let's see if y'all spot me, because I'm in the trailer.
The name is Robert Morales. I'm a housing inspector for the city of San Francisco.
What happened, big guy?
Now you might be thinking, well, that's not very exciting. That's not very dangerous, Robert. But you'd be thinking wrong. 7 people died in that fire, sir. 7 people that did not have to die. Okay? I'm not gonna carry them around, sir. They're not my dead, Mr. Choi. Sometimes you have to fight fire. So, with fire.
You Morales?
Who the fuck's asking? Because sometimes we're pushed to the other side of the street.
I don't want to leave the mission. I raised my children here. Why is this happening to us? How are they getting away with this?
Sometimes we're pushed to the other side of the law. But I'm hella underground now, son. And sometimes we're pushed to the other barrio. And many never make it back alive. Blood of Christ.
We need to get out of here.
Excuse me, fellas.
Spectators, operators, speculators.
We used to be a city of poets.
Matches.
Yes. Did you find me?
I saw you. I saw you.
So I remember at the time I was still an active student at San Francisco State. Alejandro was my advisor and my profe at the moment. I was also a housekeeper. So I remember Alejandro wrote to me and was like, hey, be here, Galeria, 7 p.m. And I was like, well, I just got out of work. I'll just go straight there. And something told me, go home and take a shower. Showed up. It was blocked on 24th Street. The sidewalk was full. There's this big black like drapery around. I was like, what? And then somebody in the front was like, are you here with catering crew? And I was like, I'm here for Alejandro. And also I'm getting bustled inside, told to be relaxed and natural. And I'm like, what's going on? And I meet Demi, the flower lady. She's next to me. And I think I do have a moment with you, Alejandro. It's like, hey, how are you? He's like, it's happening, man. It's happening. And I think I left that night late. I think it was 1 a.m. And by then I had the poem memorized by heart.
Yeah, I know I had to do it like 12 times.
Yeah,
Did that poem
so
like
many
12 times, right?
Yeah, and
Really?
then he tells me afterwards, it's the mission vision poem, right?
Yeah.
He
Yes.
tells me afterwards, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I can ever recite that poem again.
Right. It's like,
So many times.
but you know, one thing watching the trailer that it reminds me of, that the music by Omar Sosa and Jerry Gonzalez was just excellent background in all those scenes, right? So a shout out to them. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry passed away later on, a few years later,
Yeah.
in Madrid,
Yes.
in a house fire, ironically enough.
Yeah.
So in a way, he left the arsons and the fires and the mission, only to find his ending in another fire
Yeah, I
in
never
Madrid,
thought about that.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Alejandro. And I also want to thank Greg Landau, because Greg was the music supervisors, and Greg, he brought Omar Sosa in, and he brought, you know, all the musicians, especially those two. And so, yeah, I really want to thank Greg. And one more, and then I'll stop. I got to thank my daughter, Gabriela Dematteis, she started out from the beginning. She and I were doing the pre-production together along with Dante. It was just like the three of us. And so I owe a lot to her in getting the project started. And she's gone on to be a very successful documentary film producer. She works in New York for Vice Media has done some excellent work.
Beautiful. This is what I'm hearing. It was all familia.
It
From
really
the
was,
neighborhood.
yeah. And a funny story in the trailer, I don't know if you noticed the scene where they're in the meeting and there's the older woman saying, I don't want to leave the mission and why do we have to leave? And she's crying. That's actually my mom.
No, I was gonna
And
say.
she just she just happened to be there that night and we used her, and she's not an actress, but she just did such a good job, and she was just in that one little scene, and so it ended up being in the trailer, and that's her 15 minutes of fame right there.
And
I forgot to
also,
tell her this was happening. I should have had her come in.
Well, it's going to be recorded, so at least
Okay, I'll show it to her. She'll be happy she got mentioned.
yeah, right. Yeah.
and one mention, and I want to talk about like some past to set the ground, but also like where we're at today with this film. But one of the through lines that I mentioned to Eric was that in that specific scene where your mom is talking, you see the flower lady, and right now currently she's being evicted from her home. So there's a lot of things in this film alone being talked about that we still see today. But I wanted to ask the question, like, what events from the community and the community that inspire you and motivate you to produce this work? What was your thoughts back then? Why was this important?
Well, I can start with that one. It actually went back even further because the story that Alejandro wrote and he can talk about it, but it was that his story and the film was loosely based on an incident in 1975, the Gartland Apartments fire, where 12 people were killed. It was arson. They never caught the people that did it, but it was the beginning of one of the periods of gentrification and trying to change the Mission District. And it was at a time when they were changing. They had already done a lot of urban redevelopment in the Fillmore. And lo and behold, all of a sudden they wanted to redevelop the Mission. All of a sudden there were all these fires. It wasn't just the Gartland fire, but it was a whole lot of other fires in that same area. And it was also when they were building the BART system through the Mission. And, the neighborhood really rose up. And I want to make another shout out to Rene Yanez, because he was one of the people with the Mission Coalition organization at that time that was, they were fighting against the type of urban renewal that they did in the Fillmore. And if they hadn't been successful, there would be no Mission the way that we know it now. So it was interesting to get Alejandro's story. And Alejandro's story was when another big wave of gentrification was happening in the Mission. So you want to respond a little bit to that, Alejandro?
Yes, well, as you mentioned, the Garland apartment fire, 12 people died. It was the biggest fire since the earthquake, yes? And traumatized not just the residents, but also the firefighters, right? Who were involved in that whole incident. And then in a sort of bizarre way, even while we were filming, right? The fires continued. In fact, that one scene where Roberto Morales goes into the burned out building, that fire happened while they were filming, right? So we were able to use the burnt out building there on 14th and Valencia to incorporate it into the film. But otherwise, I mean, how would we have been able to film a burnt out building? You would have to have built a set in that sense, right? But not just that, but notice a couple of things that happened. When the film premiered at the Bravo Theater, about a week before that, there was another fire, the one at 22nd and Mission, right? Where just like the old apartment, Gartland Apartments, that empty hole years later is still there. Yes. And it was in that fire where a young Latino also dies, right? So while we are filming a movie about the arsons in the mission, the arsons are in fact continuing to happen, right? And while we are filming sort of some of the iconic places in the mission, like Esta Noche, well, Esta Noche no longer exists. So some of the things that were captured in the film are historical in that sense, right? Oddly enough, as we are trying to preserve the mission is also going up in flames again, or it continues to go up in flames.
That I have to ask, since the film and all these fires are happening, what was the response from the community, from people watching it, and being able to like say like, oh, that's that fire? Or was there any people were able to feel that or
Oh,
saw the alignment?
I have a great story about that.
Okay.
I just want people to know that this is not a documentary. Film's not a documentary. It's not a docudrama. It is a feature film, narrative feature film based on true events, and you know, using Alejandro's story as a basis, and then we added to it at the end. But speaking again with Renee, my friend Renee Yanez, is he was really worried. Our first screening was at the Brava Theater, and it was a San Francisco Indie Fest, and we were one of the centerpiece films of the Indie Fest. And I really want to thank Stacy Powers because of the Brava, because she helped us get in the festival and get in the theater for two screenings on opening night. And it was totally, both screenings were totally packed, totally sold out. I myself wasn't worried because the theater was packed, and I knew it was a good film. And I was with Renee, and he was really worried, and he was much more connected to the community than me. And there were no seats, so we were sitting in the back of the theater on the stairway, and a couple of stairs. And when the movie closed, the entire auditorium stood up, and standing ovation for I don't know how long. It was really incredible. And it was a combination of seeing on the screen what was happening in the neighborhood, because so many times things happen and nobody knows about them. That's number one. Number two, for people to see themselves in the film. It's incredible. I mean, we had Latinos, we had whites, we had Asians, African Americans. I mean, the mission is a ethnically diverse community, and the community of the mission was on the screen. And it was incredible. I'll never forget it. And Renee was finally very relieved because when we saw
well, also it was nice to see the mission itself, right? The streets, the Brava Theater, 16th and Valencia, that great poem by Guillermo Gomez Peña, right? So it was nice to actually, like the people, like you said, Lou, but also to see the neighborhood itself captured on film, right? With some of those great scenes, especially at Esta Noche, right? Which now rest in peace, right? Yeah. Or even St. Mary's Pub, right? Or even the scene inside the Havana Social Club, right? Where Richard is having a glass of wine, right? And there's that nice pan of all the photos up on the wall, and you see all the poets and all the people up there, right? So I thought that was also a nice combination. The people of the mission, but also the mission being a character in the movie.
No, that's right. That's right, Alejandro, because that's one of the things we wanted to do, because there's all these movies made in San Francisco, but we wanted to show part of San Francisco that people don't normally see.
Yeah.
So that was part of, what we wanted to do.
And then also that ending scene in Balmy Alley with Nicole and Richard, right? Again, the neighborhood being captured. Yeah. So no, I thought that was very good.
I love
Nicole, do
that.
you want to say something about those scenes you were in?
The scenes I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in the Galeria scene, and then I was in the last scene, the Balmy scene, Balmy Alley. The Galeria, I mean, they already kind of touched on it, but it was just a really special night. So many people showed up. I watched Alejandro do his poem like a million times. Uh,
No.
and I also I don't know how much I knew I was going to be in it. So it was just kind of exciting, like just being in that world and like getting ready. And they had hair and makeup for us. And it was such a fun night. And then the last scene in Balmy Alley with Richard, we just were so lucky to film there. You know, when I look at the footage and I look at the murals in the background, I'm just like, we got so lucky that we got to film there. And so many things that we filmed were just like a place in time, like esta noche, that, you know, no longer exists. And I completely agree with what Alejandro's saying as far as like the mission just being a character in the movie itself. And I think that's one of the things that makes the movie so special.
And talking about places that no longer exist, Galeria de la Raza is no longer there, right?
Right.
So we also captured that particular street corner that had been so historic and important in the development of the Mission District, right? So, like I said, as often happens, right, as we're trying to preserve, it's also being destroyed.
Yeah.
So, I think overall a great achievement on the part of the filmmakers to capture all.
Yeah. I feel like every year it goes on, it gets more and more special, you know, because unfortunately more and more places in the film just keep disappearing.
And as you guys talk, I hear the ambulance driving by my neighborhood in Bernal Heights. I have the question that came to mind is there any scene that, as you guys were filming, that you guys wanted to film there but didn't get featured? Was there any spaces like that happened, or was it like, man, we got it all, like all our dreams of places of shots were shot at?
Well, reflecting on that, doing an independent feature is very difficult and it's very expensive, and we didn't have that much money. I think one of the reasons the film looks so realistic is that any of these locations that we were at, we were only there that day. We didn't have the option to go back another day and reshoot a scene. I mean, we did some pickups at the end of the film, at the end of the shooting, but basically we had to make it work. Every night, every day that we shot, we had to make it work. And so it makes the film seem like a documentary, even though it isn't, because we had to make it work, and we were able to make it work. We actually had to. There were some scenes we wanted that we didn't get all the permission slips for. I won't tell you which ones. But yeah, we had to do it, getting to the point, okay, how are you going to make this work? And there was things like, well, I can say, you know, if you see the film, I think we saw it a little bit in the trailer, you know, we had a fire in a garbage bin, you know, with the homeless guys. And, you know, we didn't try to get a permission for that, because we would have had to hire the fire department to be there and all sorts of stuff. So sometimes we had to just do it.
Yeah, my old film teacher used to say sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
That's a good one. Remember
a really
that.
good one. Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was good that a guy who owned the liquor store in that building that burned, right, gave you total access to that. I thought that's some great scenes in the movie, right? Totally authentic, right? Because Richard is actually inside a burned out building in the Mission,
Yeah.
right? It's how much more real or authentic can you get, right?
Wow.
I remember you called me, Alejandro. Well, Alejandro calls me, "Hey Lou, there was a fire on the 14th in Valencia. You ought to check it out, man." And I go, there it was. There's the building. Yeah, and he was
Wow.
wonderful. The owner, that was not that was not arson. He was very sad that it happened. Fortunately, no one was injured. And he even right at the beginning, he said, we're going to rebuild this building, and I'm inviting all the tenants that lived here. They're all coming back if they want to. So he was a very wonderful guy, actually.
Wow. With again, it sounds like a lot of work, a lot of love went into the film, but why not a documentary? Lou, you do also photographs, maybe another
Well,
book. Why didn't you why choose film specifically? Like, was it this a full agreement, or was there a different media that you guys thought about putting this together, telling the story?
Well, I had done a film with Dante Betteo, a documentary called Crime Buster, about my father and our family and immigration from Italy, and that was great
great
working
film.
with Dante. And he and I always wanted to do a feature film, and so we really were thinking about doing film, and we were looking for a project. But speaking of documentaries, I'm now with Ray Tejas and David Brown. We're doing a documentary on Alejandro and his work. And so these same issues of gentrification and the fires are coming up in the documentary, and we're using his poetry and prose. It's also an international story. Alejandro was in Nicaragua for the overthrow of the Somoza dictatorship. So it's international, but it has a big part of it is about the mission. And so we're actually talking about the same issue of gentrification in the documentary, which is, we're in post-production. It's not finished quite yet.
Hopefully I'll still be around when it's done. Unlike Esta Noche. But not surprisingly, but about 2 years or so, maybe a little bit more after the Other Barrio was finished, a group of filmmakers did do a documentary on the Gartland apartment fire. But it hasn't quite taken off. I'm not even sure if they finished it 100%, right? But
No,
they did have some excellent footage of the fire, interviews with
well, it was done by the
firemen.
firefighters and the
Yeah,
sons of the firefighters.
yeah, right. So it captured the trauma of the fire, but also from the perspective of the firefighters
That's
who
right.
were totally traumatized by that incident. 12 bodies, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and sort of people may not remember where the Gartland apartments were, but they were on the northeast corner of 16th and Valencia, where now I think, well, you can tell it's the newest corner, right? There, but that's where the Garland apartments were. And that hole was there for maybe 20 years, maybe more, 25, just like the one on 22nd and Mission. And also more recently, the fire at 30th and Mission that destroyed the 3300 Club and those whole Great Victorians, right? Those are still ruins in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the fires in a way continue in the Mission District. And in fact, just half a block from 22nd and Mission going towards 23rd, another fire, right? A couple of years ago destroyed another storefront. That was a storefront as opposed to apartments. But now the fires continue. And one of the things that I learned in the process of making the film, there's a scene where, and I think this was Lou's research, they actually go and show you a map of the arsons that have been happening in the Mission District. And it looks like one of those maps of the bombed out cities of Europe after World War II, right? And I see that somebody said they want to see the whole film, but I don't think we're showing the whole film.
Yeah, I was like, I
No,
don't think
not.
this is a film
Yeah,
screening.
Eric, are you on? You still on? Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, we have there's a link that I put in the chat for people who wish to see the film in its entirety. It's on Bing Networks TV, and it's
Bin.
99 cents. So it's on there. You know, you can cut and paste, save it, and then you'll be able to view it. What we showed earlier was the trailer for the movie. So we're just discussing, you know, how the film was made, how people felt about it, and things of that nature. So it's there if anybody wants to enjoy the film.
Thank you, Eric.
Did that link go out to everybody that's in the audience, Eric?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah.
Okay,
Eric,
great.
you may want to repost it again just
Yes.
in case people.
Yes, I posted it twice. I'll post it one more time for folks.
Thank
Okay, great.
you.
Thanks, Tom.
It's
Thank
on the
you.
it's on the chat, everybody. And
Yeah.
we couldn't give it to you for less. It's 99 cents. So
What a deal.
it's a deal.
It is a deal, actually. It's a really good deal.
You could even leave our discussion right now and watch the movie. Watch the movie yourself right now.
Thank you, Eric. I was wondering about that. Like, what did you learn from the community as you guys were producing this and putting this together? But I would like to hear Nicole respond to that. If you could, all of you, but Nicole, share what was your learnings?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Diego, in Barrio Logan, and I moved up to the Bay Area when I was about 20 years old. So I won't say how long ago that was, but no, I remember the first time just driving down 24th Street and the Mission and just seeing the Mission for the first time. And I was like just blown away by seeing this like Latino community that was full of like art and culture, and I had never seen anything like it. And I was like, I have to live here. So when I went to San Francisco State, I was actually neighbors with Lou, but I didn't even know it at the time. And then through working on the Other Barrio, I really just got to know the Mission. I really saw firsthand how the displacement was affecting people, and the gentrification affecting families, individuals, small businesses. And then also just kind of seeing the resiliency of the community, how badly they wanted to preserve their neighborhood, preserve their culture, their traditions, protect, where they were living. And then also just like what a close-knit community it is. I think the Galeria de la Raza is like a perfect example, because that night when we were filming at Galeria, so many people showed up for us, people that weren't getting paid. They weren't, there for any other reason than to just support us. And that's the experience we had the entire time. I remember just as a PA in the Mission, like if somebody was in our shot and I'd be like, hey, can you move? They'd be like, absolutely, no problem. And, let me know if I'm in your shot again. And like, everybody was just so nice. And then you go to other parts of San Francisco that we filmed in, like by the pier and stuff, and people would give you a harder time, but it was like in the Mission, everybody wanted to help and support and get this film made. So
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, that's my main memory, is just the support from everybody in the Mission.
Wow. Lou, what was your learnings?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that people thought we were going to show the film and we're not showing it. Actually, that would have been a good idea. We never discussed it, but we actually could have done that. But anyway, when we finished shooting, just about finished shooting the film, or maybe we had finished, we had a question of how to end the film. And what had happened was and I know a lot of this because as a teacher at the Mission campus, I've taught photojournalism, and this was affecting a lot of my students. But when the when the big crash happened in 2008 and 2009, up to that point, there had been a lot of, rents had been increasing, and there was a lot of, there was beginning some pressure on the neighborhood. But then things seemed to be different when that crashed. But then what happened was some people, especially people in high tech that had money, saw what was gonna happen. They saw that things were there was this economic crash nationally, but they saw that the things were going to turn around at a certain point, and they started buying up a lot of property, especially on Valencia. And for example, the new college that had several buildings there, they closed and they sold all their buildings, and it was bought by high tech people. And when the buildings came back online, they were no longer community spaces. And so Valencia was pretty much going. And because events kind of had gone faster when the economy turned around, it had gone faster than people kind of noticed. And so there was a real crisis about what was going to happen in the neighborhood. And where are we going to lose Mission Street? Where are we going to lose 24th? And then and I can remember my students in my class, they used to just get an apartment in the Mission, and they could just walk to the Mission campus on Valencia and 22nd. And all of a sudden they were telling me, I remember one student said, I left my apartment because of a bad living situation with my roommate. But then when I tried several months later to get an apartment, all of a sudden the 1-bedroom apartments were costing $2,500 a month, and I couldn't afford it. So we were sort of faced on how to finish the film. And it's a noir film, and noir stories, and even, they're known for having kind of a bittersweet ending, or a very noir kind of down ending. And we had to decide. We certainly could have done that if we wanted, because of what's happening in the neighborhood. But right at that time, it's like the neighborhood responded. It was very interesting. We hadn't started editing the film yet. So this was 2013, and it was November or October, November. It was the Day of the Dead parade. And there was a group of people who decided to make the Day of the Dead parade an anti-eviction parade. So it was a procession. There were, I think at that time, there were two processions of the Day of the Dead that year, but one of them was focused on eviction control, stop the evictions. And again, Rene Yanez was totally part of that. He got some artists to make these beautiful banners and posters, and that you could walk in the parade with about eviction, very artistic. And so I photographed that. And so we had that. And so it was the community itself responding to what was happening in the neighborhood. So we decided to go, okay, well, let's use that. Let's use that as the ending. So the ending of the film is we go through this whole thing, and we notice what's been lost, but then we have this thing that actually happened in the neighborhood in 2013, which was the first big reaction to the evictions that were happening at that Day of the Dead procession. And so I photographed that. I didn't film it. I photographed that. And so we were able to use photos from that procession as Richard, as his character, is doing a voiceover, which you do a lot of times in noir, has a voiceover talking about what had happened as you're showing. And so at his voiceover, we were able to end the film on an upbeat for the neighborhood, and for people to say, this was part of the response, and to give them some hope.
Thank you for that. I remember that Day of the Dead. I feel like since then, and even before my experience with Day of the Dead, that one was the most profound. I remember Renee carrying, like, what was it, a coffin, and the procession it felt like a procession, if anything. Like, it was heavy at that time, but beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. And thank you. I'm sorry to everyone if you thought we were playing the film. I do know it was a conversation. I also want to highlight and acknowledge all you, Nicole, Alu, and Alejandro, because other than the final product of the film, the process is really important. So to have you guys also talk about this and document this and share your experiences, what was happening. I think it's historically stories that need to be told. And I hope you guys know that right now in this space, that these, as we record, and somebody at some university is going to play this to resource this. It's a very important information, because the film doesn't talk about this, doesn't talk about like that scene being a real scene, doesn't talk about like how community has stepped in to be extras, welcoming. Like, people can talk about whatever negative things about the mission, but these are our experiences as people that live in the mission, that thrive in it, and see the people, live with the people. Like, they will move out of their way versus the folks at Pier 39. And also just this endless feeling. So I want to ask, how do you feel about this film? How do you feel about this film reflecting? Oh, I see a finger, Lou.
Yeah, no, I'm maybe, are we going to open this up to questions from?
Yeah, we will. If anybody has any questions from the public, please put them in the chat. And I will bring it up. Right now, I don't see any. Thank you, Lou, for bringing that up.
Well, I will say I'm very proud of this film, and it really stands up, I think, because it was released in 2015, and yeah, I think it's not very often that filmmakers, or have an opportunity like this, and it was just I think it tells a story, and it kind of straddles the line between filmmaking and what's actually happening, and the fact that the pushback in the neighborhood happened right at the time that we finished the film. I mean, it was sort of like these events, like the fire that we were able to use in the film. It's interesting that things kept happening during the time of the film that lent to making it what it is. And I'm very personally proud of the film, and it was wonderful to work with all these people that made it what it is today, what it was.
Let me add something, a couple of thoughts. So although we're not showing the film, you can't see the poster back there, back of blue, so that's not too bad. And then the question of, what is the other body? Well, like most noir stories, The Big Sleep, Farewell, My Lovely, they're all references, metaphors to death. So the other barrio is a metaphor, right? And when somebody asks you, where is so-and-so? And you tell them, well, he's in the other barrio now. That means that he has died, right? So even the title is a reference to death in that sense, but also classic noir. And one of the things that I thought, for my experience, was the incredible amount of work that goes into making a movie, even an independent movie, right? Because in my own head, I've heard stories of, somebody getting a 16mm and shooting a film or an iPhone or something like that. But no, this was a very complex production that involved a lot of people, a lot of equipment, lighting, sound, and then people that just stepped up to do the cameos that occur throughout the movie, the Mexican bus scene, right? Filled with sort of extras that just kind of popped in, some of them, right? So no, it was really a complex production in that sense. So great appreciation for all those that participated in making this a successful movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, I am so proud of the Other Barrio. It was actually the first film that I ever worked on. And Alejandro was actually the one that gave me the opportunity because I was a student in his class. And at the time I was double majoring in Latino studies and cinema. And so I was a student in his Latino studies class, or was it still Raza studies back then? I can't remember, but I was a student of Alejandro's at the time. But he also knew that I was also majoring in cinema. And so when he told me, you know, my book is going to be made into a film, and I can maybe put you in contact with the producer. And so I'm still really grateful to you, Alejandro, for doing that for me. And I remember him telling me, this is going to change the trajectory of your film career. That was your quote, Alejandro, and it really did. But I just feel so proud of the Other Barrio, and as time goes by, I feel like more and more proud of it. You know, it's continued to be relevant. It means a lot to people. The reactions we've had from people at screenings, even just from watching the trailer, it means so much to the people in the Mission, but I think just people everywhere that are dealing with displacement and gentrification. And I think the filmmakers' hearts were really in the right place. Like Lou, you know, was really trying to tell the story of the Mission with this, Alejandro in his book as well. So I think I'm proud of the fact that they, you know, tried to do something to really bring light to an issue, you know, and to help the community. And also all the amazing people that worked on the film. So many amazing people that I don't even know if we mentioned everyone, like Donald Lacey, everybody.
Wow.
Sean
San Jose.
that whole crew.
Yeah,
In the homeless camp, right? Great scene, right?
Tanya Oriana, who has also helped with some set design. She's gone on to be very successful in Los Angeles. She was there. Yeah, just so many amazing people, and also a lot amazing Latino artists. Like, I just want to point out so many amazing Latino artists that worked on this film.
Can I ask how, I don't know, maybe there's no answer, you guys don't want to remember, how many hours of editing was it?
I don't know. Really a lot.
Really a lot.
Really
I think
no, Dante, I gotta hand it to Dante Betteo. I mean, the guy was it was interesting because he had been doing so much, and so I didn't want to put the whole weight of doing the editing on him, and so I actually raised a little bit of money to pay another editor to do some work. And so we paid him, and Dante came back to me and he said, you know, he doesn't really get the film, so he's not going to work as an editor, so let me do it. And so I have to give Dante the real due. But I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of time, and it was interesting because it's interesting about a film, and filmmakers will know this, and people that watch films will know it from the other end. But sometimes when it's your film, you don't want to edit some things that you should. So you have a scene and you really like it, and you don't want to do this and you don't want to do that. And so initially we had some problems getting the film placed, and that was in 2014. We were gonna put it out in 2014, but then we didn't get into San Francisco Film Festival, and then we didn't get into the Mill Valley Film Festival. And then a couple of people looked at the film and they said, you know, you guys, it's a little too long, you know, and, you know, this scene and that scene, you know. And so I took that and I went back to Dante, and you can imagine he had just spent so much time editing this film. And I said, Dante, you know, I hate to put this to you, but I think with these scenes, we got it. It's not taking out a lot, but we got to do some editing to these scenes. And it just made all the difference in the world. And it was coming from, you know, a position of he and I liking something, this or that in a scene and not wanting to cut it, but then going to a couple other people that had done a lot of the filmmaking and done a lot of viewing of films that gave us that feedback. And also, we got another piece of information. It was getting near the end of 2014, and I had a friend who said, don't, the 2014 is almost over. Don't try to place the film. When we didn't get to Mill Valley, he says, don't try to place the film, because if you show it in December, all of a sudden it's a film that was released in 2014, and the next month it's going to be old. So we stopped everything. We did that extra editing, and then we decided, okay, we're going to hit it again in 2015. And the combination of waiting and then the extra editing that Dante did, it turned things around, and it just really took off in 2015. And it was interesting because we did, because Richard Montoya had already done his film Water and Power, which is a feature film. So the first year, 2015, we did all the kind of straight on film festivals and Indie Fests and DC Indie Fest, and then the next year with Richard's contacts that he had with all the Latino film festivals, then in 2016 we started hitting all the Latino film festivals, and we kept and then we also did some straight theater stuff, just a theater showing the film, like the Highland Park Theater in Los Angeles, and we were able to distribute the film for 3 years, 2015, 2016, and then 2017. And the only place I really wanted to show that we hadn't showed, because we had shown in LA twice by that time and several times in San Francisco, because we were at the Brava and then we were at the Roxy for a number of screenings, and we were back at the Brava, was New York City. And so there's a thing called New Filmmakers Film Festival, and we had submitted to that and we didn't get in. And then I think, and then at that point, my daughter was working at Vice in New York City. Stephen Lee, who was the first assistant director, he was in New York, and our director of photography, they were all in New York. And I think at the New Filmmakers Film Festival, they must have had a cancellation, because I got an email and they said, okay, if you can do it next month, we want to show your film. So we finally showed it in New York City. I think it was November in 2017. And Stephen being there, and Gabriella and all the other people. And also in New York, there's a big community. I think Alejandro can speak to this. There's a big community of mission people from the Mission that live in New York City. So Alejandro connected us with them, and then my daughter with all the film people, and then all the photography people that I knew from all my years, because my agency, all the years of my agencies were either in New York or in Washington, D.C. I mean, we almost sold out this theater. They had no idea that we were going to bring in so many people, but then we had this great screening in New York City. I went out for it, and so it was wonderful.
Wow, the impact is major. And I didn't know that either, that there's a lot of folks from the Mission in New York. That's good to know. With this story, I guess there's folks on here that I hope do after this go see this film, go watch it, it's Friday tomorrow, making your Friday night film. I guess I invite um, Nicole, Alejandro, Lou, if what's your pitch? Why is this story important?
Well, it's still relevant, right? It's still an expression of the Mission District. In that sense, it's as contemporary as when they made the movie, as contemporary as the Garland apartment fires. Some things have not changed, right? And our community is still struggling with gentrification, right? Still struggling with fires. Maybe there's not as many fires as there used to be, but like I said, there's still fires going on. And so, and places are still disappearing in the Mission District. And so the struggle continues in that sense, right? Nothing has stopped, the struggle hasn't ceased, and the evictions continue, right? So as relevant today as the day it was filmed.
Yeah. I think I completely agree with everything Alejandro's saying. It's still completely relevant. It's also a little bit of I think like a love poem or story to San Francisco, and really showcases the city in a way that I don't think has been shown in a lot of films, and shows a side of the city that I don't think we've seen in film before. And then on top of that, just all the amazing local artists that participated in it. So, if you want a chance to see some local talent, I think this film has so many great, amazing players in it.
Yeah. And as you stated, emerging talent. A lot of the talent featured in this film about people that worked on it, they moved on to greater and amazing paths now, building more. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Nicole herself, and Melina Bobadilla. Yeah, she's doing great. I got in touch with her about this, and she's busy traveling all over the place, so she wasn't
I'm sure.
she wasn't able to come online and
Good
watch
for her though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and one other aspect about the importance of this, when we did this film, a number of cities, including Washington D.C. and Los Angeles, we actually had it shown in conjunction with people that were organizations that were working on gentrification. So when we showed it in Washington, we actually had people that were working, couple of groups. We had a panel after it where they talked about what gentrification was happening in their city.
wow.
And we also did that in Los Angeles at the Highland Park Theater, which was right in Highland Park, which is a neighborhood that's being gentrified and has been gentrified for, that's been happening in the last few years. So yeah, the topic is it's not just important in San Francisco, but nationwide.
And really quick, I just want to add, as far as the film's legacy, a few years ago, I was working for Edward James Olmos's company, the Latino Film Institute, which teaches film to K through 12 students in low-income areas. And they would always ask me, like, Miss Nicole, what films have you worked on, And I showed them the Other Barrio trailer, and it was so amazing to show it to all these Latino kids, and then for them to talk to me about the process and to tell them, like, you guys can do something like this is how we did it, like, you guys can do this too, I don't think they had ever seen that I don't think they'd ever seen those possibilities like right in front of them like that before. So I think it's also inspiring a younger generation too.
And let me just add something to what Lou said. So when we went to show the film in Washington, D.C., I came to the realization that gentrification is not just a nationwide phenomenon, but a worldwide phenomenon. It's happening in London, in Madrid, in all the colonial towns of Mexico, for example, are being taken over by expats from the US. Many of them techies or former techies or professionals that are buying up all the colonial spots in Merida, in Oaxaca, but forget San Miguel de Allende, that's already like Vampire City, right? And so that was an interesting phenomenon. In Washington, D.C., for example, Columbia Circle, which used to be a big Salvadorian neighborhood, when we were there showing it, the Salvadorians were gone. Now it's just techies, and actually found out that a lot of the people who are gentrifying were working for the Department of Defense, because the Department of Defense had grown so much, spying on us every day, that they had to hire so many outsiders, and they were the ones that were pushing the gentrification.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it. That's hard to, well, for me to process right now that it's still happening. How relevant in this story, how relevant the story is. But I want to offer a moment of resilience. What's your reflection on the resilience of this film, the impact of resilience and the resilience of Latinos? We're celebrating Latinx Heritage Month. This was put together because of one of the reasons, because you guys are amazing, but also because it's also timely with the with Latino Heritage Month. But I want to ask, like, along with celebration, what is the resilience?
Well, we get this question. We especially would get this question when we had the events that were dealing with gentrification, because the Mission District and Calle 24 is part of it, and the other organizations in the Mission. This is like a model for other neighborhoods. I mean, Eric can tell me exactly, but I think with all the work we've done in the last 10 years in trying to oppose just market rate development coming into the neighborhood, I think eventually we have something like 3,500 units that are going to be built in the Mission that are some type of supportive, some type of low-cost housing. And when people ask me, because we go to these places, and one of the things I tell them is it's political organization, and it's dealing what we've done a lot with Calle 24 is it's dealing with zoning. Well, you gotta change the zoning, but we let them know that this is part of what this film is part of what artists can do, but it's part of the it's kind of like a full frontal assault. And what we've done in the Mission is we stopped things at the Planning Commission, we stopped things at the Board of Supervisors. We've some of the developments, the market rate developments that we've let go through. It's because they're giving us a property where we could build low-cost housing. So it's this is what artists can do, but it's tied into what the neighborhood can do, and it's tied into your organization, and you have to do things politically, and you have to do things dealing with zoning. But I've been able to bring that message to communities outside of in different cities in Washington, D.C. and in Los Angeles and New York and Denver, etc.
Yeah, I think even though the Mission has changed a lot, and unfortunately, a lot of places that we love have closed, it's still there. It's still thriving, I think. And people are still fighting to save the Mission. And this film when we filmed, it's going on almost 10 years, and people have not given up the fight for the Mission. So if that that's not resilience, I don't know what is.
Well, I would agree with Nicole and Lou that the Mission and the struggle of the past 10, 15, 20 years, because it's been a long time, right? Since the beginning of the destruction of the first murals, right? That were permitted to happen because they happened in the darkness, right? Classic noir, right? What does noir represent? Things that happen in the darkness, right? That are perhaps unconscionable, like the destruction of the murals, like the one on 24th and South Van Ness, one of the greatest murals, right? Going to the Mercado by the women muralistas, one of the greatest murals that we had, stripped in the middle of the night by the developers, right? Without permits, without any oversight. And so some of that, I think we're much more conscientious of as a community, right? That this is our heritage and needs to be preserved. And also as a model for other communities, and not just in the Bay Area. For example, a couple of years ago, one of the last years before the COVID, when we did the Floricanto, International Floricanto, we invited Mayan poets, right? And one of them, as I was showing him around the neighborhood, I took him by 17th and Folsom, and I showed them the park there, which is in fact in Mayan, in Chancayal, which means my little town. And I told them, look, the community got this park because they pressured the developers. Okay, you want to develop that big building, you got to give something back to the community. And so they gave that park then. And he was very amazed about that the community could do that, because I don't know if you're aware of that the Mayan community in the Yucatan is also facing a big crisis with this so-called Mayan train, which, as all the Mayans kept telling me, well, there's nothing Mayan about it. It's just another gentrification project in a way. So what happened? So what happens in the mission, in fact, does have resonance, although it may not seem that way in our everyday life. But no, people do pay attention, and I think they do learn and do get inspired by the struggle of our community. And what is also unique, I think, about the struggle of our community, that it's not just a political push, right? Or a push about zoning, but it also involves the artists. It also involves the poets and the filmmakers and the muralists. So it's a whole cross spectrum of our community, led in part also by people like Renee Yanis, the artists and the poets and the muralists, right? Working in conjunction with those that take on City Hall and the Board of Supervisors over questions of zoning and permits and density and affordable housing. So it's a nice coalition, kind of serendipitous, because it's not an official alliance in that sense. It's just an alliance of people that are concerned about their community and are willing to put some skin in that struggle.
Thank you all. I was just thinking right now, man, we are trending. Twitter hasn't discovered us yet. We are trending. We definitely are creating impact, and yeah, we are resilient. With that, I want to open the. Is there any other questions from our attendees? Any last words from Nicole, Lou, and Alejandro you want to share?
Well, I would like some questions. Actually, I would prefer some answers from the audience, but if somebody wants to raise something, I think would be a good time.
If you have a yes, if you have a question, if you could put on the chat. And if there isn't any, we'll go ahead and close up, Annalisa.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything right now.
Oh, and well, no pressure.
I would say that we're facing a new situation with the murals on 24th and South NS, the Carnival mural and the one for Chata, because that lot was just sold to a developer, and they would like to put condos on that lot, which would theoretically block the murals. So that's our current fight.
Lou, and how can people help with that? I mean, what can people do?
Yeah, how can people attend any meetings? How can people get involved?
Eric, you might have. I don't know if Eric has some.
Yeah, there's going to be a community meeting where it's going to be discussed and see what the community can, do to be able to prevent that from happening. So there'll be some, on social media outreach, flyers to get the community together. I would say in about the next month in the Mission neighborhood.
Okay.
And
I'll keep
so,
an eye out for it.
one way is to look up Calle 24, Calle 24 That's, I believe that's Sky 24 SF on Instagram to get updated, um, to follow and see if you want to get involved in that. Is there any other projects that maybe you guys want to highlight? What are you guys working on right now? I know we have Alejandro's documentary coming up. Nicole, what's next?
So I work for Zorro Productions, and we manage the Zorro trademark worldwide. I'm the creative director there. So there are, I don't know how much information I can give because this is such a like public platform, but there are several Zorro films and TV shows in the works. One of them that's already been talked about on social media is Disney's going to do a reboot of the 1950s Zorro with Wilmer Valderrama. And Wilmer is going to play Zorro. So we're working on that. And then there's a Spanish language Zorro TV show right now filming with Amazon Studios, and it's currently filming right now in the Canary Islands. So I'm also working on that, but unfortunately from here, not on the Canary Islands. Yeah, I just have a bunch of Zorro projects going on. So I think in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of Zorros. Also a very modern Zorro that I can't say too much about.
There's going to be a female? Is there going to be a Zora?
There is a female Zorro in the works, and it's a really famous Latino writer and director. I can't say who yet, but it's happening, and it's probably going to be. I think it's going to be a TV series. So that's kind of what I'm working on. I also have. I just finished a first season of a TV show that I'm writing, and I'm hoping to have it streamed, possibly like on Hulu. I'm going to start pitching it to the streaming companies pretty soon. And that one actually deals with gentrification a lot, but it's a comedy. It's called Cholo BMB, so please stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's kind of what I've got going on right now.
And where can people find you before I pass the baton?
I have an Instagram, Nicole Lucero Prado. I will put it's mostly personal, but I will put big projects on there. And then how can people find me? Also, Zorro Productions, if you want to follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We also have a website where we're going to post any news, what's happening with Zorro. So yeah.
Thank you. Lou, what you got going on? How can we find you?
Oh, I'm at, I can put it up. I'm at loudematteis.com. I'm, like I mentioned, we're in post-production on this film. It's called Keeper of the Fire, about Alejandro and about activist poets and poetry. We're hoping to get the funding we need to finish. We're hoping to hear in November. We have 2 big grants we're waiting to hear on. So that's the main thing. And then for my international work, I'm actually having a huge photo exhibit in Italy next year, because in the decade of the 70s, that's where I really got my career going, was photographing in Italy. I'm Italian American, and so that's going to be happening. So actually, I leave in November. I'm going to Bologna, and we're going to finish printing the photos we need for the exhibit. And Alejandro has some of his poetry translated into Italian, and he's been there and he's done readings in Italy. And so we're hoping, as part of this exhibit in Italy, in the middle of it, they have a film festival.
Yes. Oh my God. I've heard that's the best film festival. I had a friend that went last year. She said it's the best.
Oh, okay. Well, good. We're hoping to, since it's about art and poetry, and the film festival is about topics that are relate to the real world. We're hoping that we'll be able to show a Italian subtitled version of Keeper of the Fire, the film on Alejandro, next year in Italy, and bring him out and have him recite some poems. Do you recite in Italian, Alejandro?
I'm practicing.
Okay, you better practice. Yeah.
He's preparing.
I just came back from Italy, in fact, a few days ago, and did a reading in Perugia and met with my translator in Rome. But I'm working on putting together, it's just incipient right now, an anthology of Mayan and Nahuatl poetry, translated into Spanish and English. And then I've been writing a lot of plays, actually. My first major at Los Angeles City College was theater arts. And I did one before the COVID hit at the Brava called the Latin Quarter, Maclovia Reese and the Missy Beat, about the Latino neighborhood in North Beach, right, which is the original Latino neighborhood. So I've been working on a lot of plays in that sense, and doing some of my own writing and staying busy, basically, as much as I can.
Thank you.
I want to thank, but there's only 3 people left, but I want to thank you. Thank you 3 for staying all the way.
Yeah, right. And next time we'll show the movie for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And congratulations, Nicole. Really proud of you and all of the great success that you're having.
Oh, thank you, Alejandro. That means so
I
much
I
to me.
helped her get her job. I want you to know.
Okay, good.
Oh, okay.
Because her boss contacted me and wanted to know the real about
The real
the
Nicole. Huh?
I wasn't sure what you would say, Lou, but you were nice.
Of course, I was nice.
Hi, folks. We're at 7:28.
Okay.
On behalf of Glide, I just want to thank you for joining us, Lou, Nicole, and Alejandro. We appreciate you guys being here and all the work on the ground and on film.
Thanks
And
for having us.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Thank you
Please.
all for
Anytime.
being here.
I just want to
Thank
thank
you.
Annalisa also for stepping in and stepping up and covering for our senior director, Miguel Bustos, for hosting. Thank you so much. Thank you to our participants. Our next virtual event is going to be Filipino American History Month, Soma Filipinos Heritage District. It's on Thursday, October 20th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The Soma Filipinos Heritage District is a celebration of love, pride, and generations of Filipino people power in San Francisco. Why a heritage district? Join us and discover a history of resilience, courage, and determination to preserve its future. And don't forget, sign up to become a justice warrior at glide.org under the Center for Social Justice. Thank you once again, everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Thank
Night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.